Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Matters of Public Importance right here on Channel 6. I'm yours, Gail Teixeira, Chief Opposition Parliamentary Whip, representing the People's Progressive Party Civic, Members of Parliament, and the People's Progressive Party. On this program, we shall focus, as always, on matters of public importance, bring you information and discussions on issues and matters that have concern to you, the Guyanese public, every Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30 right here on Channel 6. Before we get into the meat of the program, let me remind you, as always, of the telephone numbers you can use to call in on the program, 225-0010 and 225-0008. And we'll start taking calls probably about 1:10, somewhere in there. And as always, I always remind you of the Office of the Leader of the Opposition is open and functioning, and that we work from Monday to Saturdays, Monday to Fridays from 9 to about 5 o'clock, and on Saturdays from about 9:30 to about 1:30. So you're welcome to pop in. There are people there who will be there to help you. Members of Parliament drop in from time to time to volunteer at the office, and we also have some staff there. Of course, I've also said to you from time to time, Dr. Roger Luncheon, former head of the Presidential Secretariat, is there and volunteers, and he takes up a number of the issues that people come in seeking representation. So the number there, the telephone number there, 225-3432, 225-3432, and we're at 304 Church Street between New Garden and Peter Rose Street, just opposite the border ground. And of course, for those who you like listening to radio, 90.1 on Demerara, 90.1 for Demerara, 90.5 for Purpose, 90.7 for Essequibo, for those of you who'd like to listen to Freedom Radio and what goes on that program. Today we're going to focus on the economy. You remember I've quoted to you before what has been said by former American President Clinton. It's the economy, stupid. That's the crux of the matter. It's the economy. And so before we get into that, let's do a quick wrap-up on the SOCO's activities from last week, which we reported they had arrested and detained former President Barry Jagdeo, former head of the Presidential Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon, former Prime Minister Sam Hines, former ministers of the government Priya Manichan, N.K. Gopal, Robert Prasad, Clement Rohi, the daughter of the former President Ramatar, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Ramesh Duku, Kwame McCoy, and there were further arrests and detention on March the 17th, last Friday, with Ricky Ramraj, MP Nigel Dharmlal, and Jagnarine Singh. So let's repeat what were the charges in the first phase, the first group that was arrested on March 6th, 7th. As you know, and I've said this before in the program, that the National Housing Program, which we launched in 94-95, was based on subsidizing state land for the use of individual house lots for low-income households and later for middle-income households. Land given to the private developers could not obtain land at subsidized prices for the private housing schemes. And remember that these lands that we opened up from 94 on, right up to 1915, were undeveloped lands, and in most cases were abandoned sugar lands where there was no infrastructure, no drainage, electricity, water, roads, etc. And so the APNU AFC has been ratcheting up their accusations against Mr. Jagdeo and the PPP leaders since 2011 and during the period leading up to the 2015 elections, and more so after. They massaged repeatedly, with the help of some hostile media houses, the land at Sparrandam, or what is popularly called Praderville 2, was sold to Jagdeo and other former cabinet members, public officials, and private individuals below the market value. And they threatened to charge Jagdeo and others for corruption. In fact, there is no crime or offense committed if you buy land below the market value. This ridiculous charge could be applied to all persons, the 100,000 people and households who were granted house lots, who bought these lands from the government under its National Housing Program between 1996 to 2015, because all those lands were subsidized and not sold at the market value. Anyway, that's just a recap of last week. Let's go on to this week. Let's get now to the real mega issues on everybody's mind, and that is the economy. And I wanted to start the program by quoting from a recent analysis done by Peter Ramsroof, a candidate on the PPC list in 2015. And he says, and I quote him, "In the last 2 years, David Granger has been president of Guyana. We have seen too many things slaughtered, including our booming economy inherited in 2015. As in the Bible and the story of David and Goliath, another prophecy seems to have come true, that someone can actually take a healthy economy where jobs, money, and investments were evident, decades of GDP growth, and transform them to an economy with heavy taxation, no foreign investments, major scandals by government officials, and capital flight as the exchange rate skyrockets. David has killed our economy," end quote. He then goes on to say, not just David, but here comes Moses. As also in the Bible, he parted the Red Sea and dried up the rivers for the Israelites to evade Pharaoh's army. Fast forward to 2017, and we have another Moses with plans to close the sugar estates, put hundreds of workers out of jobs, with not a serious thought about their long-term welfare and the breakup of settled communities. These people, caught in the midst of what most see as callous actions, have to fend for themselves and maybe worry about the Pharaoh army, given the speech by the president for the army to be prepared for unrest. He continues, "They then all turned to the Jordan River, which in the Bible was a place for many miracles. But it seems that our Jordan is out of miracles to turn the economy around and seems to have contented himself to literally flow into the economic Dead Sea. The promised land that is across from the Jordan River happened over 2,000 years ago. Today, promises from APNU AFC have evaporated into thin air," end quote. So let us go through I have itemized about 11 key areas relating to the economy that I think all our people are familiar with, but we need to look at in a little more detail. And so while I'm talking at some point, we're going to put some photographs up of some of the activities, the outreaches, the protests that have been taking place in different parts of the country. So you see that people are hurt, they're concerned, they're worried about their future and the future of their children. So what are the alarming trends in the economy that everyone should be concerned about? Number one, foreign direct investment has dried up. The only foreign investment into Guyana in the last 2 years is Smart Solutions, and you know who they are, the parking meter company. And we all know how corrupt that is. They tout the fact, this is the government tout the fact, that gold is the main foreign currency earner. But had the PPPC government not brought in 2 new large investors in gold, we would be in much worse shape than we are now. So, number one, foreign direct investment, where is it? It's dried up. 2, the government has shown inexplicable, callous neglect of the rice industry. Again, another major foreign currency earner for the country. And this industry is now tottering on the verge of collapse. Worse yet, as a result of the announcement by Elisi Rice that they are closing all operations in Guyana after 25 years. The government continues to be like Pontius Pilate in the Bible and washes hands of the rice farmers and their families, and entire communities dependent on the rice industry. Will we return to the days when poor quality Busi rice had to be imported from Central America in the 1980s? Are we going back to those days? They've taken a viable industry and neglected it, refused to accept any of the recommendations the PPPC gave them a year ago on how to help the rice industry and to stop the free fall that is going on. The third one, sugar. Sugar, despite the difficulties it's been going through in the last few years, is still a significant foreign currency earner. Meaning the government, started with closing whales and said they have a plan. A year later, no plan can be seen. They're still talking about maybe housing, maybe diversification, maybe giving sugar workers land. Now they've decided that sugar is too big a burden and they will be closing more entire estates. Rose Hall, Kanji, Enmore and LPI, Iflet. These are all on the chopping block. Remember I spoke to you quite a long time ago about the Commission of Inquiry on the sugar industry, which the government commissioned at great cost, and they handpicked the commissioners. And the commissioners then said that no estates should be closed. The government dissed the report completely. And in fact, the Commission says that no estate should be closed, as the repercussions, the consequences would be catastrophic. Thousands of workers, their families, cane farmers and their families, entire settlements and communities and businesses will be decimated. And remember, coastlanders, it is the Gaisuco drainage and irrigation systems that are maintained for their purposes, but also help to reduce the level of flooding in communities along the entire coast. Who and how much will now have to be spent to maintain those systems in the backlands? And are they going to fill them up or sell them as house lots? That will only make flooding on the coastline much worse. This is utter and complete madness that is going on. Remember also that Skeldon is on the block to be sold, and Skeldon's bagasse cogeneration plant feeds into the national grid and powers most of Berbice and part of Demerara. So what's going to happen to that? And lo and behold, on the 104th commemorative anniversary of the Rose Hall martyrs, there is Prime Minister Nagamutu saying that the government wasn't closing estates. It wouldn't let sugar die. It was just tweaking them by closing them, some of them to improve the production so all could benefit. Well, if you can figure out that logic, I'm proud of you, because I was lost completely. It is just a bunch of hogwash that Mr. Moses is talking about. So sugar, we got a clear idea of how serious it is. Number 4, no surprise therefore with what is going on in sugar and rice, as well as with foreign direct investment, is that what's going on with no foreign direct investment, no help to sugar, and in fact destroying it as well as the rice industry, then why is there a surprise by the government and the Bank of Ghana that there's a shortfall in foreign currency? If you're not earning enough foreign currency, how are you going to have foreign currency to sell? Or whether you'll have enough to sell, and therefore the bank, I assume, and others are keeping a control. So there's a fall in foreign currency earnings, a shortage of foreign currency, all the business people are complaining, and the government and the Bank of Guyana deny completely that this is not so. We're all imagining this when you go to the bank or when you go elsewhere. With exchange rates on the rise in our nation, given our dollar is pegged to the US for exports and imports, we're now seeing the rise of the cost of all goods on top of the new 200 taxes imposed in 2016 and 2017. In fact, the private sector, the Guyana Manufacturers Association, has put out a statement that appealing to the government to do something, and I'll just read a part of that, because it's now saying that the value of Guyana's dollar is deteriorating, standing at $1 US to 230 Guyana dollars, according to the Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association. They have said the following, and I'm quoting from them: "We're concerned that our ability to keep prices stable will be limited and guided by this new rate. We urge the Bank of Guyana and the Government of Guyana to take steps to stabilize the value of the Guyana dollar immediately by injecting funds into the system, as we believe that the rate is being driven by the simple economic formula of supply and demand." It also complained about the burden of the changes in the value-added tax regime, which has caused the cost of production to move upwards. The Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association is encouraging all the sectors to implement cost-cutting exercises, and have noted that some entities have started to rationalize employment. Well, you know what that means. People are going to lose their jobs. And so, this is the manufacturers. And I just want to pause and say that, the private sector asked to meet with the president and the government, no response. The Miners Association asked to meet with the president, no response. The sugar workers have asked to meet with the president and Gaisuko, no answer. The teachers' union are still trying to deal with their bargaining issues, their salaries and so on. No answer, no movement. And so manufacturers in the same boat. What is it about this government that they don't get? That when you're elected by the people, for the people, you have a responsibility when they call on you to try to meet with them and to listen even if you don't agree. And of course, the former president, Mr. Jagdeo, had asked to meet with the president in January. And of course, you know that request was denied. And so they're living in a land where they think they can rule the country by dictate. So that's number 4. Number 5, by putting all sorts of hurdles and really basically stopping the National Housing Program. Now they're talking about building 70 apartments and condos or whatever. By taking the National Housing Program and for 2 years really putting it on pause and complaining they have to find land for 20,000 house lots. Really, a lot of the land was already demarcated and a lot of land was already demarcated and put into house lots. Why have those not been issued of the 20,000 applicants sitting in the CHNPA? But more than house lots and giving people land, the housing program was a driver of the economy in the construction sector and the manufacturing sector. So the production of zincs and concrete block and PVC and wood and furniture and all these things were driven by and incentivized by the National Housing Program. So by putting a pause for almost 2 years, what has happened? The construction sector employed over 5,000 people. And that's just the construction. I'm not talking about manufacturing, which benefited from the byproducts that were needed in housing. And so hundreds of people are losing their jobs, and the manufacturers as well. So that's number 5. Number 6, the government's own capital project programs in 2015 and 2016 underperformed so embarrassingly and therefore failed to provide economic activity and jobs in the country. So whilst the government is not the largest employer, at the same time, by actions of roads and sea defenses and houses and building schools and health centers and specialty hospital and drainage and irrigation and so forth and so on, these are in the capital projects of the government, ministries, and in the regional. And by not performing, by holding back money, including money for the local government authorities, by not approving their budgets after the elections for months, it led to a complete slowdown and underperformance by enormous amounts. In 2016, 2015 you were headed, but they had an excuse. They were only there for a couple of months. Okay, we give them that excuse. But what happened in 2016? They brought an early budget. 2017, they brought in a budget in December 2016 for 2017. Have we seen a lot of economic activity? Have we seen a lot of the projects being tendered? And we'll come back to the tendering and the violation of the Procurement Acts later on. So, number 7. What is the government's solution to driving this economy? Well, we can only go by their acts and deeds. We can't go into their heads. We're not telepathic. The government's solution to the economy is a tax-driven economy, and not an economic investment, expansion, and diversification agenda. So what they want to do is take money that is circulating in the economy and go to the government through taxes, these 200 taxes, and therefore reducing the quantity of money that is circulating in the country, which feeds and drives the economy and creates further activity. This approach of the government of a tax-driven economy, which means money is taken out of the system rather than money being put into the system, has brought untold hardships on the Guyanese people. And this is only the beginning. This is only, 22 months, 23 months of their government. And in addition, the VAT, the removal of zero-rated items, essential items, items to spur business, which were moved from zero-rated to exempt, and VAT on electricity and water, and a number of other issues. And these zero-rated items, by the way, that we brought in as a PPC government, were meant to cushion the impact on the working people, especially the poor and the vulnerable, so as to make sure that the cost of living and the increase in the VAT would not hurt the poor people of this country. The government has reversed all of that with a fell swoop, dropped it to 14%, but imposed VAT now on new items that were never VATable before. And so people have to pay more on water, electricity, education, foodstuff, drugs and services, increase for licenses and motor vehicle license, all sorts of licenses, and even the used tires. Now you have to buy new tires from April the 1st. And as well as outside of the taxation issues directly from central government, you have new tolls on Harbour Bridge, for example. New tolls in Linden. If you're driving through Linden, you have to pay a toll to go through Linden if you're going on to Region 9 or whatever, or vice versa. All of these impact on people and their welfare and their ability to buy, to be able to take care of their families. And so all of this is eking into the purchasing power of the people. And this has been reduced alarmingly over the last 23 months. Number 8. The Minister of Finance, Jordan, says the economy will right itself. We must ask him how and when this will happen. When the government is slaughtering two major industries, bauxite is on the decline, gold will not be able to hold it for all the time, and is doing nothing to prevent the free fall of this economy. And we are expected to trust Mr. Jordan that, don't worry, the economy will right itself. Well, I don't know what economics he did, and I don't know, what kind of planner he is. But if he's the advisor of the government, he's doing a terrible job and a terrible disservice to the Guyanese people. And it's time for him to go, actually. Number 9. All of these factors I counted, 1, 7, 8, 9. We come to number 9. What is number 9? Number 9 is unemployment. All of this leads to unemployment. And the unemployment figures that we have been able to calculate are higher than in the 1980s. The number of people who've lost their jobs in a small period of time is higher than any other time. And let's do some maths, okay? If you don't believe my maths, you add up as you sit listening in the audience. 1,972 Armenian community service officers in July 2015 lost their job with the sweep of a pen by the minister. 300 public service, and this is an estimate based on their ethnicity and political affiliation, were terminated. And that's not going into, there are quite a number of others, but this is just a rounded figure. 1,700 Wales estate workers lost their jobs in December 2016. 600 workers lost their jobs due to the closure of Barama. 100 loggers who were selling their logs and wood to Barama have been severely impacted by Barama's closure. In addition, 300 workers have lost their jobs at a number of nightclubs and restaurants that have been forced to close their doors because business is so bad. And of course, Mr. Ramjatan's 2 o'clock curfew has not helped this situation at all. 300 workers have been laid off in construction and manufacturing sectors based on the fact there's just not enough economic activity to keep them employed by their owners, by the business owners. And 100 were laid off with Demerara Timbers. My total, my maths, says 5,272 workers have lost their job. This figure does not include those who were sent home They were sent home from LBI to work at Enmore Estate, and the others who were laid off. So when they merged LBI and Enmore, a number of workers were sent to work at Enmore and others were laid off. I don't have the figures for those yet, but of course, you would have to add those figures. Nor did it include the number of small businesses who have had to lay off workers. You know, the small businessmen, the shops and so on, who are reducing the staff because they do not have enough people buying, so they can't keep their businesses going. And this doesn't project what would be the consequences of those who will lose their jobs if they close Enmore and Iflut, Rose Hall Estates, for example. What would be the numbers? And those numbers are considered to be somewhere between 5,000 to 8,000 workers in addition. So we're just dealing with what we know, and there are probably more that we don't know about. But as the GMSA said in the quote I read you, that they're looking at cost-cutting exercises, and of course one of the easiest cost-cutting things is to cut your employees, cut back on that. Of course, the government says they have a problem with money, so they're going to now recycle envelopes so as to save money. Really? Come off of it. Why don't you take a cut in your big salaries as cabinet members and all the other benefits that you're getting, which have increased over 50 to 100% between June 2015 and now. So that's number 9. The big thing is unemployment, of people being laid off or being given reduced hours to work in order to be able to keep their activities going. And they have the spin-off effects on the minibus and the taxi drivers, the beer gardens, the clothing shops, the vendors who sell meat and chicken and so on, who know that I'm not telling a lie, that business has dropped. People are cutting back on what they use in order to try to stretch their money as far as possible. And then we have 80 million US dollars, number 10, sitting, being held for Mila Hydro Falls project. But the government doesn't want to use it for Mila, as it will show that PPP was right in what we were proposing. Even the Norwegian consultancy, an independent consultancy that was hired, said that Mila was the most viable and the most ready of all the possible hydropower sites in Guyana, and it should proceed. So they don't want to admit they were wrong. They don't want to admit that they told the Guyanese people a lot of lies about Mila. So they, as they say, they can't eat crow. But what they will do is now they want to take the 80 million US and flitter it away in a number of small hydro projects, to Matumari and others, that will maybe benefit some people in that area, but they can't, that their volume and the capacity cannot feed into the national grid to satisfy the demands of the economy, business, and households, where the majority live on the coastline. And number 11, the government keeps championing the cause of oil, and oil will be the panacea. It will be the solution to all our problems in Guyana. The problem is this, that the earliest oil will start being produced by the company, Exxon's own statements in the public, is 2020. And this will only happen if the price of oil goes up. If the price of oil goes down, or it isn't showing any movement, it's questionable whether production will start in 2020. Even if it does start in 2020, what will be the impact on the number of jobs for Guyanese? By the company's own figures, which they have presented publicly, that the first 3 years there will be jobs, 500 jobs, but mainly for foreigners who are qualified and trained in working on rigs and who know the industry, oil and gas industry. After the first few years, they are saying that there will be 50 jobs available to Guyanese. 50. Ancillary opportunities will be limited because the workers, oil workers, basically live on the rigs for a month at a time, sometimes 2 months at a time, and they've flown off the rigs to the nearest airport where they catch a flight to go home and spend some time with their families and return. So whilst there may be some opportunities, this is grossly exaggerated. And so, again, they're fooling the people. Again, they're fooling the people. And we also have to watch what has happened to oil. Oil has been a good and a bad thing. And it has major impacts on the environment, but it also has damaged countries. And so you have Nigeria, one of the largest producers of oil in the world, where, yes, they are making money, but poverty is terrible. Poverty is terrible. It's not been a solution to the problems that developing countries face. And 12, the final one. On top of all these 11 factors that I've outlined, we have extravagance, squandermania, and corruption. The additional cost, for example, of this heavy bureaucracy, this heavy top-heavy government, and I'm talking about cabinet, I'm not talking about the 1,000-odd new contract workers they've hired, while they're taking doctors who were on contract and taking them off contract, putting them in the public service establishment at lesser salaries. And the new batch of doctors who've come back are now being put straight into the public service pension establishment at lesser salaries. So this is how we treat our young people. This is how we treat our qualified people that are here to serve our people. So let's go back. Top-heavy government. I'm talking about ministers, the cabinet. I'm not talking about the huge number of people in the bureaucracy that has increased. That alone will cost $1 billion by 2020. Additional dollars, not costing. The wanton expenditure on superfluous matters, regional flags, all sorts of naming of places, rebranding of places, and repainting of places. And of course, you know that I have listed for you 26 scandals. Well, today, I promised you for quite a number of time that there are more scandals. 26 was as of August, September last year. And some of them, of course, have sequels, the Sussex Street Bond and the Durban Park have sequels. They're not finished. They keep adding on new aspects of corruption in relation to them. But there are more new ones. And so some that have taken place while the 26 were going on, but we didn't know about them at the time. So according to my calculation, we're now at 29 scandals. So if we, and what are those? If we add on the IDB Government of Ghana GPL tender, where they postponed the tender 3 times, they re-tendered 3 times, and then awarded the contract to a company that bid $1 billion over the engineer's estimate. So 9 months delay. This is the IDB loan, in which part of the money that comes into Ghana is also from loans, the disbursement that comes into the economy and benefits the economy, benefits us, the people. So for 9 months, money that was part of a loan, we're paying the interest and everything else on these loans. There are penalties because we're not using it, but you give it to a contractor that bid $1 billion over what was the engineer's estimate. So that's number 27 scandal. And worse yet in that scandal, one of the bidders who had the lowest tender went to the courts, and the Attorney General said to the judge that we need to have it held urgently. This is a matter of urgency and emergency, and we have to get it through, rushed it through, and so the court was interfered with, pushed into dealing with something with not a proper examination, and of course the judge, the court ruled that proceeding was in order, nothing wrong had taken place. And then we have number 28, water tenders, tenders in the water sector for water treatment plants, again have been postponed several times, and then awarded to a chosen contractor, again bidding above the engineer's estimate. And then, of course, the latest one of all is the 600 million plus for drugs. Again, emergency, urgency, shortage, gotta do it. But at the same time, just like the others, that I've just mentioned, there were tenders for drugs from the GHPC. Last year, 3 that were advertised and then cancelled. 3! And all of a sudden you decide that there's an emergency and one has to act. You know, we've been exposing these scandals one after the other, and the violation of procurement procedures by this government. And there's no letting up. We have gone through the 26, which I documented to you months ago. And of course, we have gone through and talked about Durban Park, meters contract, and so on. And when this government talks about the corruption of the previous administration, what are they doing? Okay, so they're lean and clean and they're good guys and we're the bad guys in the PPP. Let's give them that. Let's give them that just for today. Yet under their noses, there are 26 scandals, Durban Park, parking meters, write-offs of $5 billion to DDL, Sussex Street bond, violation of procurement laws, and selecting contractors for huge sums of money with no tender, no bidding process. All of this under their noses and in their domain. This is all taking place, and no one has been investigated or charged as yet. But they're going after the PPP leaders, saying that we're corrupt. And they haven't found one iota to show that there's corruption in any of these issues they're bringing up. So we know that they've got into the habit of putting out tenders and then cancelling them repeatedly until it seems as if the chosen character or chosen contractor is able to come forward and win the tender. And so this has happened over and over. And you know, we, the Guyanese taxpayers, are paying for all of this. And the $600 million for drugs, by the way, let us just clear up one thing. I said it last week, but maybe we should take it over again. The company that won, or so-called was awarded this contract, had gone through pre-qualification bids in the drug sector, the drug and medical supply sector. The system we had was companies went through a pre-qualification process. So anytime we needed drugs, they were pre-qualified, we would be able to go through a selective tender. Regrettably, this company was not able to be pre-qualified because its prices, the cost of buying drugs from them was exorbitantly higher than every other company that was bidding for drugs. And so now they have been able to win, and of course, you know what? We, the Guyanese people, will be paying, the taxpayers will be paying more for drugs. Not only in terms of purchasing them, but when they get into the private hands and or the hospital, we are all going to be paying more. And yet the minister says that, it's the staff. The staff are wicked. The staff are corrupt. The staff conspired. Yet the letter from the National Procurement that was sent by Public Hospital to the National Procurement Tender Administration said very clearly that the minister had approved this. The minister had approved this. So how can she say the government? And if you're going to approve something, I was there, I was a minister. You got to go through things with a fine-tooth comb. And you got to make sure the laws of Guyana are being upheld. So the state of the economy is in such dangerous waters on the verge of going into free fall. I'm going to ask the guy who is a technician to float some photographs we have while I'm wrapping up this issue. What should the government be doing? The government should, of course. We have put forward proposals on how to save the rice industry, how to save the sugar industry, how to be able to call on them to reverse reverse the VAT issues and put them back to zero rated as was originally, so that the exempted status reverses back to zero, to cushion the impact of the economy on the people. These are just some of the issues we propose. But the government doesn't want to call and speak to anybody. They just want to have you as a token representative at different meetings. They're not interested in hearing. In fact, many of the AFC members are complaining that APNU doesn't listen to anybody anyway, and nor does the cabinet, which is both APNU and AFC. So, what do we, the people, do? The government has to hear your voices. Like the movement against the parking meters, who have been coming out peacefully to have their voices heard, and the protesters against the tax on private education, and the sugar workers as well, and the rest of the people will have to have their voices of discontent heard. And there are many avenues still available. Social media, letters to the media, petitions to Parliament, petitions to the President and ministers of the government, picketing, marches, strikes, for example. And all the activities that have been held by the working people of this country, whether it is the parking meters, whether it's the sugar workers, whether it's the rice farmers, whether it's the persons who are opposed to VAT on private education, they have all been peaceful, disciplined, organized. And in the case of the parking meters, very, very, very creative and imaginative. And they've been consistently going out there. 5 weeks, 6 weeks, for example, with parking meters. And the government does what? They suspend, and we'll come on to that. Time will come when we cannot sit by and allow the continued destruction of the gains we've made, whether with our democracy and democratic rights, the economy, our livelihood, our children's future. We can't sit by and wait for things to change by somebody else doing something. For those who voted for the APNU AFC, the burden may be heavier, as your voices need to be heard louder by those you elected, whether those you elected for city councils, NDCs, RDCs, members of parliament, ministers. I hear complaints from APNU AFC of how profoundly disappointed they are of the persons they've elected and how their lives have worsened, and the government won't even speak to them, won't even meet them and speak to them. Well, before I move over to the phones, parking meters, more confusion. The government has suspended the parking meters for 3 months. The company says they'll take the city council to court. The city council tried to block the government suspending. This was all headed by APNU AFC councillors. We believe that the government is trying to buy time to hopefully in the 3 months of the suspension that the parking meters movement will peter out and lose momentum. We shall prove them wrong, all of us and the movement against parking meters. The contract itself is the wicked piece of work, and it must be revoked as the most scandalous and corrupt contract ever signed in this country, which is tying 2 generations to pay back. If the company wants to court them, to take them to court, the contract will then be scrutinized by the court for what it is, a terrible, terrible piece of contract. And I believe that the government, the city council, and the company know this, and that's why they don't want the matter to go to court. They would just like to find another solutions. So we have 3 months suspension. Don't give up. Congratulations to the movement against the parking meters, and keep up those peaceful, imaginative, and resilient protests. I've said repeatedly on this program that the government continues to live in La La Land, believing that it can rule this country by diktat, lack of transparency, lack of accountability, subversion of the Constitution and the judiciary, and happily go about rebranding, renaming, and repainting Guyana. It is time now, I believe, for us to take our calls. So I hope that you have found some of this interesting, and I'm sure you all have opinions on all of this. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Did you see the photographs we posted up?
Yes, I just saw them.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
All right. What you can do is
Yes.
get a movie of The Lion King.
Yes.
When Scar take over in King's absence, when he died,
Yeah, he killed him.
Simba come back.
Yes.
When he turned the Pride Land into a graveyard.
Yes.
Now, those are the pictures you just showed here.
Yes.
We have Scar in this country.
Yes.
And believe me, just do a projection based on what you just read there.
Yes.
You will see in 1 year or less, we can be lining up for rice flour, sugar, kerosene oil, and even a key for opening our own gate.
Yeah.
Believe me,
Yeah.
these people are dangerous people that run this country. They are a bunch of liars. And please don't cut me off, because I can prove it. This is not an accusation.
Yeah.
Minister Trotman said that there are 3 extras, quote unquote, extra ministers. A particular columnist wrote about that in the papers, and they denied it after. The president and Mr. Harman denied it. They were selected ministers.
Uh-huh.
As far as I know, it may be unconstitutional for us to have a business minister. That in itself is contradicting. And they hadn't did that.
Mm.
The president, I'm telling you, these people are so devious. Could you believe, just like how you mentioned that Mr. Nagamoto
Yeah.
said that they weren't closing down.
Right.
They weren't closing down the estate, but yet it may be sold to his son-in-law. They rumored about $5 million that PPP collected. And this is not a PPP versus APNU conversation here, but it's just how it goes to show how these people are lying. They talk about $5 million that a particular minister went on a private jet to obtain. They said that the monies were paid to the PPP.
Yes.
There are records now to show that the money
Was never paid.
was never paid.
And now they're going to have to find lawyers to fight the case in London to
We
get back
have
their money.
a finance minister that apparently he just lives on Mars. He's saying now that the economy has to right itself. Is he speaking of RIG? It's here the RIG. I don't understand how the US dollar could revalue itself, one.
Yeah.
When the only thing that gave them a 2.6% growth in 2016, they are about to implement 42% on that particular industry. That's the gold
Yes.
industry.
Yeah.
In other words, everything else is fixed, and the only thing else that is working, these people are trying to kill.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
when you said just now that the plan, they have a plan. It's called the SCAR era. It is to run the country in which SCAR ruined Lion King Priceland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I know the movie well. I look at it with my grandson, and so I'll have to go back and look at it again because I remember it very well. Thank you. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Thank you for calling.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
I'm the person calling in connection with the dialysis, really.
Yes.
The problem is that I only have about 4 sessions remain from NIS, right? Now when I apply, you have to wait 1 month to ready process, and I don't have that money to ready pay, so I don't know how to get wrong it.
I don't know. Again, I keep telling you that you have to see, you have to come to the Office of the Leader office where we can try to deal with it. It's not easy to deal with it on the phone here. This is a call-in program.
I tried making an appointment, but I ain't really think so I don't know really.
You did what?
Okay, so I can leave and I'll make an appointment, but I was never called back also. I don't know.
No, well, I think you need to call and specifically go in to see Dr. Luncheon. He won't be there tomorrow. I keep telling you he's not there on Fridays, but you should try to see him on Monday. And so, because sometimes people just drop in and see him. They don't necessarily have an appointment, and they can wait to see him.
Yeah, because the next thing, the right person up there was hoping, like for your visit, because there was like 40 patients a day, right? Which, can't afford to really.
I know.
So, okay.
We've called for it in Parliament. They're still not doing anything about it, right? So I think, particularly with your case, it's better that you come into the Office of Leader Opposition. If Dr. Luncheon isn't there, ask to meet Julian Burton, who is a Member of Parliament, or Bishop Edgell, or one of those, that we can try to help you in your individual case, okay?
Yeah, all right then.
Okay. All right, bye-bye. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Hello. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Yes, good afternoon to you.
Yes, good afternoon.
It's a wonderful day to see those protests that is taking place, that are taking place in Georgetown.
Yeah.
And the police is not going and shoot anybody. They are all able to protest, exercise their democratic rights without being shot with pellets. It's a real wonderful day. Thank you for Ghana. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't necessarily believe that people must be shot for protesting. These are peaceful protesters. These are peaceful, underline peaceful. Peaceful protests. Whenever there have been action by the police in the past, it has been because of violence, of riots, of beating, of fire, etc. So I'm not quite sure what the caller is trying to say. I believe firmly that there is no reason for the police to take any action whatsoever. These are peaceful pickets. They're abiding with the law. And the police are there to uphold the law. So, anyway, let's go for our next caller. Good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yes, hello. I'm talking to you.
I hear the target was some 26 pints, but I think to my knowledge is 126 pints.
Well,
Hello?
yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, it's not 26 pints, it's 126 pints.
Yeah.
Do
Well-
you know that 40 years ago, people used to run from Guyana and go to Venezuela?
Yes.
Now people have to run from Guyana and go to a different country. We may have to run and go to Suriname because we can't go to Venezuela because Venezuela is in a crisis. I don't know where this country heading for or what we're heading for. Because right now the US money in the road is $240 for one.
Yes.
When the US money reaches that height, cost of living climate.
Yes.
Times will come now that people who can't afford to buy nothing. Do you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you all the time.
Yeah. And I think that Soko investigating the wrong set of people in this country.
Yes.
Soko need to investigate people that can't get accountability for 8 years or 7 years upon society.
Yeah.
And they need to investigate the minister, what the minister was involved with the Chinese scandal when the GRA was seize the Chinese vehicle and he called up the GRA and tell him, leave the Chinese alone.
Yeah.
Soko should investigate that minister before he investigates anybody else and city health.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And I feel this government cannot run this country. To me, this government, these people who administrate this country, if you put them to run a cake shop, they even can't run it. And they want to run a country. They can't do it.
Yeah, well, you see, just like...
Right now, this country run into, I feel you run into a bankrupt country.
Yeah. No, the situation is serious.
That's my point.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
The president forget one thing in his criteria to be met for the selection of the become boss.
Yeah.
He mentioned a lot of very, very good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he forget that he ran for the same, or he was eligible for up for selection for that same post, and if he could be the High Court judge. But he forget one of the criteria, and somebody needs to tell him. The person must be able to walk on water. That's very important because we're not going to have, there's no way BJ is going to come up with a qualified person unless they must not ice water, so water. And with this oil, I'm telling you, God bless Guyana. If we don't run and leave Guyana, we're still here. I can put my head on a block that they are not going to enter the sovereign monetary fund because it controls and regulates how it deals with sovereign money
Yeah.
on a transparent note. You cannot just barge into it as you like.
Yeah.
There are regulations.
Yeah.
You got things guarding every single cent.
Yeah.
And you can bet that they would never, ever, ever go into that.
Yeah.
So the president needs to understand that somebody who can walk on water for run G-Com, because I don't know Mr. Salisbury personally, but I hope he wasn't qualified for a high court judge. He could not have been a high court judge.
No.
Damn, that would be part of your pet justice.
Yeah.
Anyway, this man is delusional. I don't know when you and the sane-minded Guyanese people are going to fund anti-business people a massive, legal, peaceful protest. All businesses need to shut down immediately. If we don't do that, our kids are going to run. Mr. Jordan and others are going to enjoy everything that we left, and we will lose. We will be forever lost. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. These are important points people are raising. I'd love to take one more if it's short, because I have 3 minutes left, and I better not. Forgive me. Good afternoon, matters of public importance. If you can be just 1 minute, I can take you. So go ahead. Hello? Okay. Hello, matters of public importance.
Hey, good day. Good
Just
day.
1 minute, because I've got 2
Good
minutes
day,
left
Ms.
on my
Gail.
program.
I really
Afternoon.
appreciate what you guys are doing.
Thank
Hello?
you. Yes, go ahead. I'm hearing you.
I said I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yes.
And I must say I appreciate what Mr. Ganga is doing as well as on 91.
Yeah.
And keep on with the good works, right? You stay strong.
You stay strong too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've had a full day, a full activity, and of course, you know, the main issue is that, and what is inexplicable, doesn't make sense, is how could a government be sitting, even a government that's very weak, doesn't know what they're doing, to be making such mad decisions, and not addressing the real issues that engage the ordinary people of Guyana, all the people of Guyana. It's the economy, it's job creation, it's not about, people want to work, people want to be able to have an idea where they're going in the future. They want to live in dignity, they want to be able to plan their lives. To say, I bought a house lot, in a few years' time I build, and the next year I do this, I do that, and so on. People want to know, have some security, even if it is that it is not a lot of money they have. They want to be able to have some security. They want to be able to know where we're going. And all they're seeing right now is taxation and pulling out whatever resources they have. Their purchasing power is gone, and they're worried about their children. They worry about the future of their children, and therefore the great danger is that people will leave Guyana, and we don't want our people to leave Guyana. We're a small country, small population. We need everybody here. So as we close our program today, we have to be able to recognize the government has to hear our voices. And I said, social media, letters, petitions. Those of you who are party members of APNU AFC, go to your ministers, go to the president, talk to them, tell them, stop, stop, stop this madness. They're destroying our country, not just for PPP supporters, but all the people of Guyana, including APNU AFC supporters. We have to stop this madness now. And so we have to use all things that are available to us to be able to have our voices heard, whether it is by social media, letters, going to meet your representatives, whether it is by strikes or petitions or demonstrations or marches. All of that will come. And so stay strong. Do not give up on Guyana. Do not give up. It's one of the most beautiful countries to live in. It's a special country. We're blessed in many ways and cursed in many ways. So don't give up on our Guyana. But we have to be able to make sure the government hears our voices and that they are not able to get away with what they're doing. So stay strong. Have a lovely weekend. Keep your family close to you. Take care of them. Don't drink and drive. You know I always tell you that. Don't drink and drive. If you want to drink, find a minibus or taxi to get you home, or if you have a friend who drives that they drive and they don't drink while you're drinking. So we want our people to live and stay strong. And we want you to take care of your families and to do all that you've been doing to be able to stay here in Guyana, to work and to develop our beautiful country. So no matter what Afternoon AFC challenges us to do, stay strong. So have a blessed week. We will see you next Thursday, as always, 12:30 to 1:30, right here in Channel 6.